Hypno is so freaking creepy.
Hypno's status as a creepy Pokemon is, thanks to a popular creepypasta. Number
its
one,
face is just so disturbing, and I feel like it's not hypnotized almost anyone and anything. At least it doesn't happen so 3 seconds. It's creepy enough. I haven't even seen the looks horrendous, and computers like anime shows makes people act strange and or disconcerting, or at least tries its excuse Pokemon aren't real, but Hypno is straight up horrible looking.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
Hello, all you Poke fans near and far. My name is Mark Maker, and I welcome you to this video. You know, I've seen plenty of people online argue back and forth about plenty of Pokemon-related topics, but if there's one thing I've seen a majority of the fandom agree on, it's the general public opinion on the Gen 1 Pokemon Hypno, which is kind of odd to me because he's kinda my favorite Pokemon. Hey, you all have your opinion, let me have mine. As I was saying though, it's not like I don't understand why people have this opinion on him. I've seen the creepypasta, I've seen the Friday Night Funkin' mod, I've seen a lot of people letting their reasons for finding him creepy be known. The thing is, I've been finding that a lot of the basis for these opinions is largely either based on fandom creation or misinterpretation of canon elements. So let's talk about those and see if we can clear up some stuff for the big yellow marshmallow. Ladies, germs, and everyone out in space, this is my defense of Hypno. Alright, so let's start with the thing that everyone points to first regarding Hypno's creepiness, the infamous Pokédex entry. This entry is quoted as stating, "It carries a pendulum-like device. There once was an incident in which it took away a child it hypnotized." Now, the first thing I would like to point out is that I've seen some people claim that this is the Pokédex entry from the very first games, Red, Blue, and Yellow. However, according to Bulbapedia, this is not the case. This Pokédex entry originated in Fire Red, which, while related to the original 3, is still just a remake. I know this sounds like a little nitpick, but in reality, people were using this to say that Hypno has been known for this sort of thing from the very beginning, which obviously isn't true. Another thing I'd like to point at is this. While searching for Pokédex entries that got retired for breaking canon or just being weird, I was shocked to realize Hypno's old Pokédex entry about kids hasn't been retired. It's still been in use as recently as Gen 6. Why yes, good sir, that is in fact true. However, I would just like to say that was also the final time that this exact Pokédex entry was used. Hypno's Pokédex entry for literally every other game is different, but before we look at any of those, I want us to take a deeper look into this one. Let's read it again. It carries a pendulum-like device. There once was an incident in which it took away a child it hypnotized. First of all, I want to draw attention to a word that almost everyone seems to gloss over. Once. Yes, according to the Pokédex, this has only happened one time with one Hypno. Moreover, since the Pokédex does not elaborate on what happened after the fact, we don't know for certain how that ended. While the popular consensus is that the child was never seen again, or something bad happened, I think it's just as likely that it was an accident. Or another idea is that the Hypno didn't understand the consequences of its actions, and just saw this as a convenient way of keeping food nearby instead of always having to go out and look for it, seeing as Hypno has been known to eat people's dreams. Something that backs this up is Hypno's Pokédex entry for Pokemon Moon, which reads, "As a matter of course, it makes anyone it meets fall asleep and has a taste of their dreams. Anyone having a good dream, it carries off." So, with the knowledge of these two entries in mind, we can conclude that this is normal behavior for wild Hypnos, but it apparently doesn't do this to children, except for the single outlier in Fire Red. I'll come back to the Moon entry later, but for now, I also assume that because it is official that they know it was a Hypno who took the child, that the child was ultimately found with Hypno and returned home. Because, let's be honest, if anything worse happened, I'm pretty sure it would have said so. I think we've looked at that Pokedex entry enough. Let's look at some others to see what they have to add about Hypno. Why don't we begin by going back to the Pokemon Moon entry? Given the phrasing of this entry, we can assume that this behavior is both accepted and expected. It's pretty likely that either Hypno returns the people once it's finished eating their dreams, or when the people wake up in Hypno's home, they just shrug and go, nothing out of the ordinary, and just leave. How often does this happen? I'll go into that later, but the answer might surprise you. Either way, it seems Alolan are very much aware and okay with Hypno's behavior, especially given the entry for Pokemon Sun. While it is an extremely dangerous Pokemon, people who are in need of a good sound sleep call it their savior. Now, I can hear you all typing already. Mark, if the Alolans are so okay with Hypno's behavior, why would they say it's an extremely dangerous Pokemon? And to that I have to say, literally all Pokemon have the capability of being dangerous. I imagine that in this particular case, the reason they're referring to it as being dangerous is due to the Moon entry. Sure, Hypno's behavior is seen as typical, but even I don't imagine they think being carried off in their sleep is a positive thing. Still, in spite of that, this entry does also point out that Hypnos can be useful, which is only built upon by the Ultra Moon entry. There are some Hypno that assist doctors with patients who can't sleep at night in hospitals. That's such a good entry, and it builds on the idea of Hypno not only having uses but also assisting humans, especially in the realm of healthcare. Going into headcanon territory a bit, I personally feel like Hypno's attributes would be a really valuable asset for those struggling with mental health problems. As much as it's cemented that Hypnos love the taste of good dreams the most, I can just as easily see it being willing to eat the bad dreams of people it cares about the most, and also using its hypnosis to ward off anxiety attacks, depressive episodes, explosive outbursts, and other detrimental issues like that. As a matter of fact, it's pretty likely that these applications could very well be its most widespread use towards humans, because according to the Ultra Sun entry, in Alola, Komala is Hypno's main target. It rarely harms people. So even in a region where people are used to Hypno's behavior, instances like that are still hardly even happen. You don't say! It's almost like people tend to focus on the negatives of this Pokemon for some reason. Something else you've probably noticed is that all of the Pokedex entries I've referenced were from Generation 7, and while there's a larger reason for that I'll go into later, I would just like to mention that the secondary reason for this is because a lot of the other Pokedex entries in earlier generations are very mundane and don't have much to note one way or the other. Like, some of the entries are, when it locks eyes with an enemy, it will use a mix of psi moves such as Hypnosis and Confusion. Always holding a pendulum that it rocks at a steady rhythm, it causes drowsiness in anyone nearby. Seeing its swinging pendulum can induce sleep in 3 seconds, even in someone who just woke up. Which, again, don't have much of anything to say to Hypno's benefit or detriment. They're more so just scientific facts in the Pokeverse, and not really of much use in this specific video, so I'm just glossing over them in favor of the more noteworthy entries. In any case, I think we've spent enough time looking at their Pokedex entries, and I want to move on to some other canon sources for Hypno's supposed creepiness. So the first thing here I want to dissect, and probably the biggest thing in this point, is the Pokemon anime episode Hypno's Nap Time. Which, fun fact, in doing the research for this script, I decided to stream my live reaction to it. But before I could even finish the episode, I got a manual community guidelines complaint and my whole stream was interrupted and taken down. I don't know why. It was a commentary, so it fell under fair use, but the weirdest things to me are that it was a manual complaint instead of an automatic one. I wasn't told in the moment what was happening, so I was blissfully unaware until after I finished the episode, and once I was able to see what had happened to the stream, it didn't even say who had made the complaint, just that it fell under their spam, deceptive practices, and scams policy. Again, really fucking weird, but there was nothing I could do. I wasn't given a strike, thankfully, but I was told if I did it again, then I would get one. Which is a shame, because I really wanted to be able to share some clips of me dissecting and commenting on the episode, But unfortunately, I can't. So, just to be even more on the safe side here, I'm not going to be using clips from the episode itself, just still screenshots. Anyway, back on track. As far as the online reputation of Hypno's nap time goes, the general consensus I've seen is that people point to it as the episode where Hypno kidnaps a bunch of kids, and thus proves that it's an evil and creepy Pokemon, which isn't true in the slightest, and anyone who says that has obviously never watched this episode. To sum it up really quickly, Ash and the gang visit a city and discover that a bunch of children are missing, that much is true. But they also quickly discover that many Pokemon have been feeling lethargic, and their investigation leads them to a Pokemon fan club. There they find Hypno and Drowsy, not surrounded by a bunch of kidnapped and hypnotized children, but by adults who legitimately enjoy them, no brainwashing involved. These self-proclaimed Hypno fans clarify that they've been using Hypno to help put them to sleep, as they've all been having trouble falling asleep on their own. Eventually, it's figured out that since Hypno is more adapted to Pokemon hypnosis than human hypnosis, this action has been having some unintentional side effects. These side effects include accidentally making the missing children and Misty believe that they're wild Pokemon, and the lethargy of the Pokemon at the Pokemon Center. Of course, the fan club are obviously very upset that they caused this, and correct their mistake by having their Drowsy set everyone back to normal. All the kids go home, all the Pokemon get their energy back, no harm done. So, let's just go over this one more time. Hypno was providing a wanted service to people who cared for it, but due to reasons beyond its own control, caused the children to go missing and the Pokemon to become tired. Then, rightfully so, the people who had Hypno do this in the first place take responsibility for its actions and correct the problem. And yet people still point at this episode as the one where Hypno kidnaps kids. It's just so nonsensical and asinine to me that people are letting their bias against Hypno skew their perspective to this degree. Another anime moment that's less talked about, but still mentioned now and again, is the 49th episode of the Sun and Moon anime. In one scene, Faba attempted to use a Hypno to wipe Lily's memories, only for Gladion and Silvally to come in and save her. To that, I just have to say that, yet again, the fault lies in the person who owns the Hypno, not the Hypno itself. Faba was using the Pokemon in a bad way, but that doesn't mean the Hypno itself is bad. It's just following orders. It's as the saying goes, there are no bad Pokemon, only bad trainers. Also, before anyone tries to say anything about the Hypno in Sun and Moon at the supermarket that's begging for money and just stares at you, all it takes is a quick Google search to tell you that's a man in a costume, and he gives you a TM for the money. It's not a real Hypno, so it can't be used to fuel the Hypno hate train. Anyway, that's basically all the canon content Hypno is in, other than minor appearances that don't really amount to much. And after taking a closer look at all of this stuff and clearing up misconceptions and confusions, it leads to a bigger question. If even the games and anime are telling us that Hypno isn't a bad Pokemon, what could possibly be the biggest reason for the reputation he has? Well...
Come, little children, come with me. Safe and happy you will be.
I mean, it was obvious, right? There's nothing else it could have been. I'm pretty sure it's the reason half of you even clicked on this video. Some of the details about this are a little hard to find, so if there's anything at all that I'm missing or that's wrong, please feel free to correct me in the comments. Anyway, from what I know, the creepypasta Hypno's Lullaby made its way to the internet sometime in 2010 from an anonymous source, in the form of a poem which reads as follows. Come little children, come with me. Safe and happy you will be. Away from your homes, now let us run. With Hypno, you'll have so much fun. Oh, little children, please don't cry. Hypno wouldn't hurt a fly. Be free, be free, be free to play. Come down in my cave with me to stay. Oh, little children, please don't squirm. These ropes I know will hold you firm. Hypno tells you this is true, but sadly Hypno lied to you. Oh, little children, you mustn't leave. Your families for you will grieve. Their minds will unravel at the seams, allowing me to haunt their dreams. But surely all of you must know that it is time for you to go. Oh, little children, you weren't clever. Now you shall stay with me forever. On November 19th, 2010, a YouTube channel called Trainer Derek uploaded a version of this creepypasta that was converted into a song format, set to the tune of the original Lavender Town, and with changes made to the lyrics. At the time of writing, this video now sits at 4.2 million views, and has spread the creepypasta so much that this is arguably the most popular Pokemon creepypasta. This creepypasta is still so popular, even more than 10 years later, that a Friday Night Funkin' mod was created based on the song and story. Now, I do want to bring something up about this, and this is the time frame. As previously mentioned, the last time the most infamous Pokédex entry about Hypno was used was in Gen 6, which came out in 2013, 3 years after the creation of Hypno's Lullaby. At the time, it seems to me like they republished that particular Pokédex entry as a sort of subtle nod to the popular creepypasta, and fueling the idea of him being a certified scary Pokémon. But we also know that by Gen 7 in 2016 and 2017, it seemed like the tone of Hypno's Pokédex entries were starting to change into something more positive, and steering away from the idea that it's an inherently creepy Pokémon. And while I doubt that Nintendo or Game Freak or whoever's in charge will ever really confirm why this is the case, I can't help but feel this is the result of one other unsavory facet of Hypno's internet presence. To keep this as short and safe for work as possible, after 2010, a huge wave of adult content featuring Hypno was created. In most of these pieces, Hypno was depicted as performing certain actions without consent, whether hypnosis was involved or not. The existence of this content has had a huge hand in cementing his online reputation as a stalker, a gurmur, and much worse terms that I would rather not use on my channel, but you're more than capable of putting two and two together here. The combination of these two major facets has done an insane amount of damage to the way people perceive Hypno as a whole. Before then, Hypno was just seen as the psychic-type Pokemon you used if you didn't have an Alakazam in Gen 1. Now he's just seen as a gross manipulator who's out for blood, or worse. I feel like the change in Hypno's Dex entries was probably some attempt at damage control, but by then, it was already so bad that there was no way a few positive Pokédex entries were going to change that. And really, that's the whole reason I made this video. I know I can't change the entire internet stance on Hypno, but if I can convince even a few people that Hypno is still a Pokemon that is deserving of love, then I consider this a video well worth making. After all, I have a Hypno that I've kept since the days of Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and I frankly consider him my partner Pokemon. He's been with me through so many other games, and I can't wait to have him with me in the Paldea region. I wanted to defend him the same way others online defend their starters. I even have a plushie of him, and I've made plenty of art of Hypno as well. I just think he deserves to have this love without being scrutinized or judged in a negative light. My boy isn't tied to the creepypasta. Why should he and countless other Hypnos who have trainers who love them be treated like they are? That being said, if you've watched this video all the way to the end, whether or not I've changed your mind, thank you so much for your time. Let me know in the comments whether you're now on Team Hypno or if you're not convinced. If you enjoyed this video and it made you think a little more about a really underrated Pokemon, be sure to hit that like button. And if you'd like to see more content from me, make sure to subscribe, follow my socials, and join my Discord server. That's all for now, starlings. I'll see you all in the next video, so until then, stay inspired, stay creative, and peace out.